Are you wondering which polarizer to get for your Mavic 3? Well, today I went out and tested the NiSi polarizer versus the PolarPro polarizer, and I'm going to share my results with you now. Right now we are looking at the Mavic 3 video feed just on the standard color so that I didn't have to do any color correction, and it's easier to get exposure. And in this shot we have no ND filter on there, and we can see the base exposure is 1/1600th f5.6 ISO 100 5500K white balance. And the next shot we're going to look at here is with the PolarPro, and we can see that our exposure goes up to 1/800th by one stop. And we can also notice a pretty significant shift in the reds here. If we go back and forth, we can see it looks like there's a fair bit more reds, or maybe not that there's so much more reds, but that there's less blues. As we see over here in the blue channel, the blues seem to be pushed down. This is at the maximum polarization here. Next shot is with the minimal polarization. So that's one of the benefits of the PolarPro CPL, is that you can turn it and you can turn down the polarization if you don't want so much. And as we see here, not a huge difference. We still have some of the blues pushed down, definitely different than the no ND. As we can see, the concrete that I had this on looks a bit more orange. Next, we have the NiSi. Now, first thing I noticed with the NiSi is that there is no loss in the blue channel. The concrete that we're looking at here looks the same color as it was with no filter. See if we go back and forth between here and there. Looks very, very clean, but everything looks like it's equally going down as we skip back and forth between the two. Now, if we go to a wide sky test here, where we can see the full effects of a circular polarizer, right here we have the no ND base exposure 1/8000th of a second. This is the PolarPro CPL with no exposure correction. I wanted to see what it actually looked like how much light was it actually eating up. And they rate theirs, I think, for one stop, that is a ND2. If I correct this exposure back up and go from 1/8000th to 1/4000th, then we get our white chip back up to around 90. It's a little bit less than 90 IRE or percent. Now that was with maximum polarization, and this is with minimal polarization. So pretty big difference in how much it polarizes. And then we're going to skip over to the NiSi. And the NiSi is obviously way darker without any change in exposure. Now, if we do change our exposure to balance and get our white chip up to 90 IRE, then it starts looking really good. No ND and the NiSi. The biggest thing that I notice is the lack in color shift. There's a lot less color shift than with the PolarPro. So no ND and the NiSi, and then the PolarPro again. So we kind of skip back and forth between those. We can see with the PolarPro, we have a lot more sort of orange, and it looks almost as if that orange kind of makes a haze on the horizon more pronounced, which I'm not really a fan of. I like it how with no ND, we go over to the NiSi, the horizon over here just looks really nice and blue, and I like that a lot. I don't really want my blues taken out of my sky. All in all, I wouldn't say that either is better than the other. The PolarPro has the advantage of being a circular polarizer, being able to adjust the amount of the polarization, whereas the NiSi doesn't. It is just a flat piece of glass on the mount. I found that the NiSi was a little bit more difficult to mount to the Mavic 3, and the PolarPro goes on and off really easily. The PolarPro comes with a nice little case for it that kind of looks all techno, whereas the NiSi comes with a rather terrible crystal case that's meant for 4 filters. So if you buy just one, you're still getting this huge filter case that's not going to go in your bag or your case very easily, and that's kind of a disappointment. But the NiSi wins when it comes to color reproduction. The PolarPro wins when it comes to being a little bit more versatile. And that's the end of my review. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please give it a like, give it a comment, and see you in the next one.